Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while, but I'm Craig Patterson for DS Sports as always. We're back, the international break is back, Scotland are back, and it's the final set of games before we head to the Euros in the summer, where we take on the likes of England, Croatia and the Czech Republic in our first major tournament in 23 years. It'll be come this summer. We're back again. Sorry, it's been a wee bit of a delay, a lot of things going on at work. Sometimes just lack a few ideas at this time, but Scottish national team being back is always a good excuse to come back, and here we are back again. As always guys, leave a like on the video, comment, subscribe if you are new to anything that is mentioned on the channel, and yeah, let's get straight into it. Scotland, 3 upcoming matches at the start of World Cup 2022 qualifying taking place in Qatar next Christmas, or next winter should I say. It's basically next Christmas, just before I think, in and around November, December. Yes, a key group coming up. We've got the likes of Denmark, Austria, Faroe Islands, Israel, a couple of others that I've forgotten, or well, there's one other I've forgotten. Let me double check. Moldova as well. So that's Austria, Faroe Islands, Israel, Moldova and Denmark in this group. A fairly reasonable group. I mean, compared to Euro 2016 qualifying, where we had, excuse me, likes of Germany, Poland, Ireland in there, Georgia, Gibraltar in there as well. Much more pleasant group it seems. But yes, the first 3 games are coming up. We've got Austria, really big game on Thursday night. We're 2 nights away from that one. Yes. And a big game, big start for the national team, the Tartan Army in Austria at home. There's been some slight hitches in the run up to this one. Well, certainly on the Austria side, there was fears that a lot of their German contingent, they were saying that from the original 23 or 26 that they selected in this, I think 18 were from the Bundesliga, and there were some fears they wouldn't be allowed to travel, as there's quarantining rules that mean that you have to come back and quarantine for 2 days once you return back to Germany. But that has since been relaxed. There's a bit more of a stay-at-home quarantine, or there's like more of a relaxation performance-wise. Like if you've got if there's performance reasons or exemptions, then you're allowed to, if you're tested okay, you can come back and be in a more secure bubble when you return to Germany. So it means you've got the likes of David Alaba, Martin Hinteregger, Andreas Ulmer, Marcel Sabitzer, Baumgartlinger in this one. Try and look through the squad, some other big names. Schopf, who's been playing in Schalke, not a very good team at the moment. Stefan Ilsanker as well, and Alexander Dragovic as well. I think he's the captain of the side. So yes, a very strong Austrian team with a good solid back line as well. So it's going to be interesting. But before we look at the game itself, maybe look at the more tactics, maybe just a quick word on our squad this time. Some very big stories out here. Che Adams has pledged his allegiance to the Scottish national team, capped at youth level by England, but has switched his allegiance after speaking with Steve Clark, the gaffer, and has sworn his allegiance and is called up for this current squad. He's been doing okay. It's been a little bit of a barren spell for him at Southampton, but he's been doing really well. He's been doing okay, scoring some goals in the top flight, which is sort of more than can be said to the likes of Ollie McBurney, who's returning in this one. Looking at other players, you've got Lyndon Dykson doing 2 great down south, although he has just scored, ending I think it's a 20 game spell I think it was in at QPR. Ryan Fraser's back in after missing out in the autumn after the playoff success and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so it's a reasonable squad. Other names in there, you look at, I'm just reading some notes. Jack Hendry gets his first call up. He's been, from what I hear, he's been doing really well at Oostende in Belgium, doing really well. They're saying that he's probably been one of the top performers in the Belgian league this season in a sort of middling side as well. So it's certainly promising to hear he's doing so well. Grant Hanley, after a very, very long time, returns to the squad. Interesting to see how that works. Norwich doing really, really well at the moment. Looks like they're going to canter themselves, or they're going to themselves canter to the Championship to bring them back up to the Premier League. So that's interesting to see him back. Other names in there. Ryan Jack has withdrawn from the squad. Unfortunately, it's really sad to see him withdraw, because I thought, the last 2 games he's been playing for Scotland, he's been excellent, a really key member of this team, and yeah, a real shame to see him not competing in the next few games. But hopefully he'll be back and in good form, good fitness coming up to the Euros, because I think he's almost undroppable at this point. Other players in here, John Fleck, I'm quite surprised to see him back in the team, along with Ollie McBurney, 2 players who have really struggled, or certainly been in a struggling team, with Sheffield United, who look like they're almost doomed for relegation at this point. Other noticeable names in there, Kevin Nisbet, first call up for him, great to see him in it, great to see him called up. Hopefully he'll get a few minutes maybe later on. Potentially Faroe Islands is maybe the best shout for him in this group of games. The usual figures, you've got Declan Gallagher performed really well against Serbia, you'll remember. Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney obviously, Ryan Christie returns, John McGinn, McGregor, McTominay. Will he play in a back 3? Will he play in defence? Will he play in midfield this time? We'll discuss that a wee bit later. Ryan Fraser, as I've said. No call up just yet for James Forrest as if there is a return from injury, but certainly going to be interesting to see how he competes post split, and indeed in the Scottish Cup, where he might get a few more minutes to allow him to return to form in some capacity preparing for the Euros. David Marshall as well, back from an injury, so it's good to see him back. Interesting to see if he gets all 3 games, or whether he'll maybe get a bit more of a phased return with his injury being a bit of an issue. But yeah, it's an okay squad. Some new faces in there. Interesting to see how they'll get on. Or some old faces returning, should I say, and along with that. But yeah, tactically, it's very interesting. What is Steve Clarke going to go with? In Austria, I feel like, against Austria, I feel like, probably against Israel as well, I don't think he'll change too much. I think he's going to look for structure, he's going to look for stability, and he's probably going to look for a preferred 11 going forward to the Euros. Because we don't actually know if this is going to be the last 3 games before the Euros. I don't think there's been no word on any warm-ups as yet, pre-Euros, whether they'll be decided after this crop of fixtures. But knowing that the leagues are going to go right up until about 3 or 4 weeks before the Euros begin, I feel like there may well be 1 or 2 warm-up fixtures, but nothing too extravagant, because obviously there's a lot of travel that's going to go on for these games, and I'd assume that for these, especially with the regional and the geographic distances or separation of the entire competition, there will be maybe the national teams will want to be in their regions where they're playing and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work. We'll find out, I'm sure, closer to the tournament, or certainly in the next few weeks or so. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be pretty much the same as we've seen, a back 3, a solid back 3. Whether that, I would imagine Declan Gallagher would probably be in the stalwart and right in the middle of that back 3. Scott McKenna's back in there as well. I forgot to mention him. Will he come back in return? Will there be more of a dynamic back 3 with Declan Gallagher playing in there, and you've got probably McTominay, I would imagine, would maybe stay in the right side of the back 3. Although I think he's been brilliant for United recently. Really, really confident on the ball, always looking forward. And I think he's been a real burst of energy for United this season when they've really needed it as well. So will he stay in the back 3? Will he look to spray balls into the midfield? And yeah, and who will be the third person in there? Will it be Considine? for example, I don't see it. He might get some minutes, but I don't think it'll be too amazing. You've got Kieran Tierney as well. You forget Kieran Tierney. You could probably look at. I would be surprised if it's anything other than Tierney, Gallagher, and McTominay as a back three. You've got just because of what we're used to. I doubt it'll be too much different, and especially with Austria being a very, very big game to get going. The other fullbacks, you've got O'Donnell and Palmer back in the team. I've not seen too much of Palmer, or for O'Donnell for that matter. I'm really surprised Sean Rooney wasn't selected in this squad. I think Sean Rooney's been playing brilliantly. I mean, I've watched a lot more of St Johnstone. I've watched the cup final, watched the semi-final, watched some other bits and pieces of St Johnstone as well. But he's been fantastic for them certainly since Danny McNamara went back from his loan spell. But yeah, I think he's been brilliant, so I'm surprised he's not in there. Nonetheless, I'd imagine O'Donnell will play in there. Palmer might get some minutes again, but I don't know exactly. Probably a rotation basis on that one. Left back, well, it's kind of obvious. Andy Robertson will play in there. Greg Taylor may get some minutes. I don't know. It's hard to tell what's going to go on with that one. Now, the midfield wise, how will they set it up? I'm not overly sure. Actually, before I go on to that, let's talk about the front two. I think it'll be a 5-3-2 of some kind, whether it'll be a 2-1-2 or just a flat 3-2. I'm not too sure. But the front two, I've talked about this, I've thought about this before. I think it's going to be one of two things. So you've got, strikers you've got in there, you've got Nisbet, McBurney, Fraser, Dykes and Adams. I would imagine in any system there'll probably be some kind of inclusion of Armstrong or Christie in there. I think if you go with a two, I personally don't believe that Dykes and Adams will play together. I think there's maybe too much. I don't know. I just don't see it. I feel like it's going to be Dykes or Fraser because he played so well against the Czech Republic. Way back, was it October, September time, something like that. One of the 2 weeks in there. When we won 1-0 at Hampden, brilliant result that was that day. Or I think it'll be Dykes. I think it'll be Dykes and Fraser, like I say. Or I think it'll be Adams and Armstrong, just because they've got that connection. Whether Armstrong will then drop deep, maybe help at the midfield, and Adams can run in behind, is another question. But I feel like you need to have that, and I think McBurney and Nisbet will probably get more reduced minutes. I think Nisbet will maybe get minutes against the Faroe Islands, especially if we've started off well in the first two. Maybe 4 or 6 points out of them would be fantastic out of those two games. But I think it'll be one of those two parts. It'll be Adams and Armstrong, or it'll be Dykes and Fraser. If it's a 2-1 in midfield, I think McGregor and I don't know, it's difficult. I think it'll maybe be a flat 3 with some kind of dynamicism in there. I think Ryan Jackwood is so key to that midfield that I feel it's just difficult because everybody else is maybe a bit more forward thinking. So if McGregor comes in or Kenny McLean can come in and maybe sit deep, I don't know. But I feel like if you're going to really go for it, I think you need to play like McGinn and Christie. Or, yeah, so I think it's like McGinn and Christie need to be in there. So you have like two shuttlers playing either side of the number 6, so to speak, which would have been Ryan Jack. You see that you had Jack McGregor and then you had a more free roaming number 10 in Christie, or whether he would play more further forward, you have John McGinn in there. I think there's good options in that midfield, but it would have been so much more interesting if Ryan Jack was in there, because he's undroppable. I think he's undroppable. He's a brilliant player, a destroyer in the game, fresh legs, picks his spots well, intercepts the right passes, and I think he's incredibly strong. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I think, from what I understand, is a back three that Austria play. So I think Hinteregger, Alaba and Dragovic play in a 3 with... But as far as I know, David Alaba plays anywhere for Austria. He plays in so many different positions. I think I've seen him playing wide left. I think I've even heard of him playing in the 10 before, which is really interesting. So I don't know exactly how he'll be deployed. But if I had to take I mean, it might be that Dragovic, Hinteregger and Ulmer who plays for Red Bull Salzburg, good player. They're probably the most experienced ones in there. You've got Stefan Leiner in there as well. Not too sure how he'll play. But then you probably have like a midfield three, and then a front two. I think Gregoric is probably the main one for them. Savica will play off him perhaps. Maybe have a more free roaming 10 because he's so good when playing for Leipzig. Midfield three, I'm not too sure. I don't really watch too much of Austria, but I think I know they don't very often play a back four. So my bets would be a back five would be played of some capacity, maybe or a back three, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be an interesting one. That will probably have time will tell on that one. Not a lot of goals in this Austria team, but I mean, who are we to talk? Not a lot of goals in our team either. So yeah, like I say, I think there was 40 odd players in this squad, which has now been trimmed down just for the eventuality that Austria couldn't field their German Bundesliga contingent. So yeah, interesting to see how that goes. Israel's next. We know all about Israel. It's going to be a fascinating duel. I'm not looking forward to it because I know we struggle against Israel. It's not going to be easy, but I'm glad we've got the away game out first. If we can come out there with a point, I think I'd be okay with that. But a win would be absolutely brilliant to get that one out of the way. Usual suspects in there. We kind of know what they're going to play. Beaton's in there. Manu Solomon, who's a brilliant young talent, in there. Zahavi scoring goals for fun, kind of wherever he goes. Munis de Boer's back in the squad. Good performances for Hoffenheim recently. Sean Weissman's been playing more regularly at Valladolid. Marciano, Eli Dasa, who's always given Robertson problems. Hatem Abd El Hamed just recently left Celtic. He's going to be back in the squad as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. And I think the Austria game is going to be key as to the potential success of that game in Israel. Because I think, although we came off the Serbia win before we played Israel last time, obviously there's a lot of sort of hangover from that. Possibly literally, but I doubt it. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think the Israel game is pretty key as well. In terms of the Faroe Islands, obviously there's not a huge amount. No, they have come along recently though. They've started to play some more sort of competitive football. What's happened here? I'm trying to go through look at the squads. Not too many familiar names, not too many names outside of Faroe Islands that play. Johan Simon Edmondson plays at Arminia Bielefeld, currently third or fourth bottom in the Bundesliga right now. Play well as a Dundalk player in here, but very much the majority of this team plays in either the Faroe Islands themselves or a few that play in Norway, and then there's one that plays in Sweden, two that play in Denmark, and then the Armenia player and the Dundalk player as well. So interesting to see how that goes. You obviously fancy Scotland to win that, especially at home. Whether they can score enough goals to really help themselves with goal difference in the later stages of this qualifying campaign will await to be seen. But certainly not going to be an easy place to go either. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But at least 6 points is a good target for Scotland here. Anything less than that and it's going to be a really bad start, and there's going to be a lot of backlash from this in sub capacity. But yeah, great to have the Scottish national team back. We'll be cheering them on brilliantly. I hope that they do well. Got my scarf ready, got a few tops ready as well. Come on Scotland, let's get a great start to this campaign. And yeah, let's really really focus on the Euros now. I can't wait for the Euros. It's going to be a brilliant summer. Hopefully weather's nice, we can get out. All restrictions should be more or less lifted by that point in the UK. I've got hotel rooms to get to London. Hopefully I'll be able to go, and hopefully we'll be able to have a good time, and it'll be fantastic. Until the next one guys, I might be back. We might do game on game reviews. I've got 1 or 2 more video ideas for other subjects down the line, But this one, great to have the national team back. I cannot wait for it to happen. Thursday night, it's Austria at home. Sunday night, it'll be Israel away. And Wednesday night, it'll be the Faroe Islands at home. So can't wait. 3 quickfire Scotland games. Can't wait to watch it. Please like the video if you have indeed liked it. Subscribe if you're new for more Scotland national team content, and like I say, other content that's going to be coming up in the near future hopefully. Until the next time guys, thank you very much for watching. Come on Scotland, we can do this again. See you later.